This video is going to give you crystal clarity on what to hyper focus on to make $3,000 per week or even scaling up to landing $100,000 clients. This is only for creatives who are interested in VFX, animation, or film/video production. I'm going to give you examples of exactly who these clients are, what services you should offer, the pricing, and examples of exactly what your portfolio should look like to sell these clients. So you have all the information laid out right in front of your face so you can finally make a confident decision on where you should hyper focus your time to have any chance of competing with the other talented vendors out there. Being decisive and pinning down an exact niche is so crucial for executing our client acquisition warm map. And this is pretty new, so no one is doing this properly. Most people are stuck in the old way of connecting with people on LinkedIn, sending cold emails, or being a generalist and waiting for referrals. Now, this is where most people get confused. I'm not saying you shouldn't take in generalist client projects that come in. I don't care if it's a music video, film, commercial, content, Justin Bieber, OnlyFans. If it's good money, take it. But what I am saying, you have to pin down one niche at a time to rapidly build an amazing portfolio, execute our client acquisition warm map. I'm so excited about this video because I personally struggled with this with so much confusion and wasted so much time in the past decade of my career because I didn't have a mentor to lay out these profitable niches and force me to make a decision. I was so afraid to do that. I wanted to do everything because I thought I would be limiting opportunities or I would waste so much time going in the wrong direction in a niche that didn't have money. I wish I had a wizard from heaven come down and force me to choose a lucrative niche. The riches are in the niches. The worst mistake you can make is to overthink this and not make a choice. Plus, you can always change your mind later and be further ahead in your career even if you jump around to different niches. But by the end of this video, you should have made a decision of what niche you're going to focus on to start rapidly improving your portfolio and executing the client acquisition warm map. So let's jump in and begin this process so you can finally make the decision. So I actually spent a lot of time pouring my deepest wisdom into these resources here because I actually want this to change people's lives. I knew how big of a struggle this was for me and how much time it could have saved. So first of all, I'm going to make it clear who should not pursue these niches. I'm not going to try to overhype people and try to sell them into this like most people do. I want to be clear like, hey, if you're this, you're wasting your time. Do not do these niches. So first of all, if you're slow at using computers and you don't love computers, do not waste your time in these niches, all right? This is like me. Computers are a part of my brain. If you destroy my computer, you've destroyed my brain. I breathe computers. I whiz around on computers. It's my thing, all right? I love computers. All right, if you're in a small remote village away from a big city, you're gonna really struggle. You need to be in the proximity of these big cities where these marketing agencies and studios are to be a lot more successful and have an edge of competing. Because like if you're super talented and you're a specialist, yeah, you can get some remote work, but you can't be in your comfort zone and be too afraid to move away from mommy, okay? You wouldn't do this if money were not an objective, right? If you're doing this just to make a quick buck or there's better ways to make money, like real estate or something. Like if I didn't make any money, I would still do stuff like that. I would still make YouTube videos. You should be passionate about this kind of stuff. Want to really sharpen your skills continuously. There's like the talent really translates to money. If you refuse to learn marketing, if you want to live a really physical lifestyle, if you want to be an athlete, this is not for you. Or if you want to travel 24/7. People do travel in this industry, but if you want to be like a nomad, it's not really going to work for you. So if you are not any of these, you are safe to pursue these niches. You can't go wrong. All of these niches have good money if you do it correctly like I've laid out in all of the resources. So let's start with the first niche, which is VFX. I don't care what anyone tells you. If you do this properly, you can make really great money. So we can open this up to check out the services to offer. So you can be a compositor, 3D artist, FX artist, and then you can climb the ladder of these supervisor and executive roles. But if you're really going to be highly paid, you need to be multi-skilled. They call it at the big studios like unicorn artist. You're a compositor, you're a good 3D artist, you might even go into FX. Now the pricing, $3,000 to $10,000 monthly. For example, at some studios like at Crafty Apes, my entry level was $6,000 a month. and it climbed up to around $8,000 a month. Worked at other studios for up to $2,500 to $3,000 a week working as an employee at a studio. So this can get even higher if you're a really specialized FX artist or senior flame artist like Autodesk Flame. You can make between 8 and 20K monthly, but it might kind of become a little bit of a freelance thing for the studios who can't consistently afford that rate. But like I said, these people are multifaceted with all these skills. All right, and these are US rates. At other studios around the world, it's not going to be exactly the same. So you got to make sure you fit in these VFX studios. You got to have the right specialties or you're really going to struggle, right? With 3D, you're using Maya, Houdini. With compositing, you're using Nuke. The talent is currency. It's not like other jobs, like a warehouse or a cashier. You don't have to be talented. All right, now as a VFX entrepreneur, and that basically means a freelancer scaling up to bigger projects and kind of having your own studio. Like, you don't need like brick and mortar. You can hire these artists remotely. That's what I've done. It's better financially. So let's talk about the services you offer as a VFX entrepreneur and the pricing. And then we can talk about the exact pricing of running your own VFX studio, what some of these projects can be. Indie feature, usually 25K to 150K per project, 300 shots, something like that. Blockbusters can be between $500,000 and $20 million per project. Usually only the bigger studios get these projects, so as a smaller studio, you're a vendor to the big studios, obviously only getting a fraction of the budget. For commercials, they outsource the VFX work, which is generally 2 to 20K per project. And for some of the big, heavy commercials, it can be up to $500,000 per project, some of these super high-end commercials. And TV and streaming is actually one of the sweet spots for the smaller startup VFX studios. And it's similar per shot pricing to these, like I said, 150K for like 300 shots, something like that. But I've also included resources in here. I mean, there's like tons of resources down here, but I included some of the relevant ones here. So you can check out more details of VFX pricing that are in this link. It's more detailed. And also here I give you bid examples of like a real VFX studio client bid, and also this goes really deep into the types of vendors for VFX studios. Why am I helping my VFX studio competition be so successful? I don't know, I just can't help but create a good resource. So as a VFX entrepreneur with a startup studio, it can be very feast or famine. You know, strong client networks often form organically over many years networking as an employee. They have to see you as like the inner circle. So it's really difficult just to send them an email and they suddenly become your big client. It's really these organic relationships where there's almost a friendship or a family inner circle. Having an office or renting one of these office spaces can really help your chance with getting the bigger clients. All right, some pros to this VFX niche, all right? So obviously you can be working for famous blockbusters and actors that give you status. Freelancing for multiple studios can be lucrative and a great lifestyle. It's great networking. These VFX big teams of super talented people come together. Networking is top notch in VFX. Kind of go down here. As you scale up, you become an entrepreneur, start your own freelance or studio. You can realistically pocket over $100,000 for a client project. You could consider that a pro. Cons, look, I'm trying to be realistic. I'm not trying to oversell this. I realize this is really affecting people's lives and their life decisions on this video. So I'm going to be realistic about also the cons and downsides of, say, pursuing VFX. So transitioning to a scalable studio is very challenging. If you're very entrepreneurial, like we talked about before, growing the organic network of these big clients can be very challenging, because a lot of the big clients, big blockbuster films and TV shows and commercials, actually feed to the big VFX studios. So it can be tricky to subcontract to those VFX studios, but we'll talk about the other niches, how there can be smaller projects for entrepreneurs who are doing startups. I keep saying this is a very competitive industry. There's lots of clients and ever increasing demand, but there's worldwide competition, so many talented people out there. And look, so there can be contract hiring, so job security can be low. It can be kind of a feast or famine thing. As we mentioned before, you're going to be a lot better off if you live in the same city. So if you're like really attached to your family, don't want to move, you're too scared to move, you want to stay in the nest, it's going to be really difficult for you to be really successful in VFX. However, in recent times, there's been a lot more outsourcing around the world. So there are a lot more studios, like say in India, for example, but obviously they don't pay quite as much as some of the bigger cities like London or Los Angeles or all right, in terms of general job duration and future stability with AI, let's go into that. Generally, if you get a contract with a VFX studio as an employee or contractor, generally the project may be between 2 and 12 months. They keep you on it, and if you're really good, they'll want to bring you on as an employee. But there also is a lot of contract hiring where they bring you on when things are really busy, and then when it's done, you're out. With AI, feature films are all about the high-end visual experience. So like movies like Marvel, they want visual perfection. There's so many revisions. And so it's going to be a little bit tricky for AI to fully replace that. I mean, AI is coming for every industry. And obviously, even with the AI tools, there's a lot of human collaboration and operation of these AI tools. So it feels pretty safe to pursue relative to a lot of niches. All right, we've moved from red to blue, which is the second niche, which is commercials. Now, at first glance, I want you to realize something about commercials. I'm going to show you deeper into this resource. Look at all these different industries. Like, there's way more industries than this, but pretty much every business needs content and commercials for marketing. So does that kind of give you an initial glance about how big this market is? So I like for people who are new to this just to kind of think about that in case they have this kind of scarce mindset where it's like, is there money in this? Is there money? Can you make money with this? Is there any money? Is that lucrative though? Is there any money? All right, so as a commercial employee, let's talk about the kind of projects you're doing, what kind of clients, what kind of services and pricing. So how it works as a employee who works on commercials is you're hired at an ad agency or an in-house or a brand's in-house video production. So let's take any brand, Vitamin Water or whatever. That company has an internal creative department for their marketing. So that's where they hire motion designers and video producers and editors, or they outsource that to an agency that hires employees. So an agency handles marketing. Guess what's a part of marketing? Video. So it's specifically a video production agency or an ad agency, which sort of translates into a production studio or film studio, right? So these are all kind of merged together. So those are the businesses that hire you as an employee. So you can be doing video editing, motion design, or videography and creating content for social media at these as an employee. So you may want to be multi-skilled to really serve their need and make good money at that brand or agency. So this guy, for example, I've done multiple projects for him. He's a perfect example. He works at a brand called Finesse, which is like a fashion brand, and he produces like so much of their in-house marketing content. So this is like, for example, one project I did for him. But he's a perfect example of a commercial/content employee. In terms of pricing, what you get as an employee, between 2 and 9K monthly. So usually if you get hired as a VFX artist, the floor payment's a little higher, but there's actually more jobs out there working in commercials as a content producer. There's more lower paying jobs, but there's also just as many high paying as there is in VFX. You can obviously rates can increase as you can climb the ladder as a supervisor, director, producer, head of video, creative director. These, as you climb the ladder, obviously you can make even higher rates than this 9,000, especially, it depends on the size of the brand that you're working for and how much money they're playing with. And as you climb the ladder, you could be managing other aspects of the marketing, like their strategy and branding. And this is where it gets interesting. As you scale to an entrepreneur, let me just add that, entrepreneur. I just never spelled that right. Okay. As you scale to a content entrepreneur, I never gonna pronounce that. Entrepreneur or newer. Entrepreneur. I don't know. It's this simple. You're producing commercials for brands and businesses. So this leads me to the first big pro of the commercial industry is that it's easier to start up your own company because there's more small projects. Unlike VFX where it can be tricky to start your own studio, but if you're producing commercials, there is endless projects of all different sizes, so it's easier to get started as an entrepreneur producing commercials. All right, so if you're working for a small business, 20 to 60-second spot or an ad, it can be between $3,000 and $15,000. As with corporate ads, investor videos, 10 to 100K. Obviously, bigger brand commercials can be between 50K and $500,000. Some of these bigger high-end VFX commercials can be over $1 million. For the most part, the bigger agencies devour those projects. So let's dive into the different types of commercials to see what services to offer and what your portfolio should look like. So these are different types of commercials categorized by the skill specialty. So for example, if you're a 3D artist, there's 3D animation commercials. There's 2D animation and motion graphics commercials. There's live action cinematography and directing commercials. All right, there's editing and sound design, which is a really crucial skill in commercials. There's whiteboard animation, FX simulation commercial, frame by frame effects. So it's sort of like the 2D version of FX, which is frame by frame, which studios can create some really high-end commercials with this kind of thing. Drones, virtual production, which is what I do. And then a big money booster is when you get into promotion and media buying, which is like with YouTube ads and Facebook ads, and really solving their need of getting more customers rather than just really being in the video production aspect. So let's talk about the different use cases for video production and commercials. There's explainer videos, there's like trailers for films, there's promotions and teasers, right? There's product launches, think iPhone launch videos. They generally have more of an emotional effect. There's TVC network spots, and look, I have links to examples of all of these. We have paid ads and retargeting, huge market. There's social media following and traffic, which is, as you go into a content creator, there's endless people, influencers, and people trying to grow personal brands for their marketing. Brand storytelling, events and invitation promotions. There's testimonials and case studies. Look, so many use cases. You can check out all these examples and see kind of what your portfolio would have to look like to really appeal to these different sub niches. So you sort of combine the skill and the use case to really pinpoint your exact sweet spot or where you belong in the commercial industry. And this is where you create a package that you sell to businesses and brands and agencies that hire your agency to produce this content. All right, I am really thirsty. I'll be right back. So going to turn on this light. All right, so the pros and cons of this niche is, I want to reemphasize this one, that it's easier to start up your own company because there's endless small commercial projects instead of having to compete with the big boys in the niche. All right, and because it's so much more of a broad industry of a lot of small projects, but there also are big projects, but it's a little bit less feast or famine than the film industry. There are more cities with big agencies and brands than VFX studios. Like I'm talking about, if you live in the proximity of these companies, you're much more likely to get hired. And if you have your own studio or agency, you need to be in a big city where these brands are. And as in the commercial industry, there's more agencies and brands spread around the US and around the globe than there are VFX studios. So relocation to a potential good employer could be easier in the commercial industry. Also, just like in VFX where you work on these blockbusters, they can give you status. If you work for big brands on their commercials, that can give you good status. But I have to say that with commercials, like I mentioned the cons down here, it's generally less prestigious work than film. It's less stuff that you're proud of, like that you like to show people. With commercials, it could be a little more boring projects, but it can be exciting, the variety of projects you work on, the different skills you use. Whereas VFX, it's more really technical and niche skills with commercial editing and sound design and motion design, all these different skills that some people enjoy that variety, and like a variety of different industries and projects compared to film. There's a little bit more flexibility with non-disclosure agreements, so you can share to social media a little easier, and there's more remote flexibility because when you're working on the biggest blockbusters, they're so strict that sometimes you'll be remoting in from your laptop and you're a little more flexible to travel that way, but other times they send you these 10 zig devices where you can't relocate and it has the IP address and you can't travel and stuff like that. I've worked at companies that do it both ways. But another con here is that when you start your own agency, you can be potentially doing these pretty small budget projects at first, depending where you're at. So obviously with commercials being smaller, freelance and contract hiring can be shorter, between 1 and 8 weeks, but it's more typical to get hired as an employee at agency. But the freelance can be a lot shorter because of how small these projects are. And then in terms of future stability with AI, it's relatively stable because client demands for quality and quantity will keep increasing as the AI tools get better, because marketing is so much about volume. However, some of the really $1 million high budget commercials might become more scarce, or their budgets might lower as more independent or startup studios can produce what only these top agencies could produce before for millions of dollars. All right, now let's talk about the last niche, which is that content entrepreneur. So the content employee is pretty much the same as a commercial employee, but the content entrepreneur is where it gets a little bit different. And this can be one of the easiest entrepreneurial businesses to start, because similar to commercials, how there's so many small projects, endless personal brands and influencers trying to grow on social media and producing short form content. So what it looks like, you're a vendor to agencies or influencers and brands who use social media for their marketing and growing their personal brands, who want to produce, for example, 10 plus reels or shorts per week. So short form content is really common, but it can also be like YouTube with long form content, or even, like social content like slides and whatnot. But how this works is, as an entrepreneur, is you help them with idea generation, scripting, editing, and publishing for a monthly retainer. So it's very consistent work and lots of volume and so many clients out there. It's kind of the opposite of VFX, where there's like fewer projects and there's the gap, and then suddenly you get a project and there's a bunch of money, and my ring flew out, flew away. With this, there's so many projects, but they can be lower paying because there's a lot of competition with these editors on Fiverr and whatnot. So that's why it's essential that you differentiate yourself with intelligence of virality, going viral, because they will pay a premium if you're not just an editor. You're actually helping them bring in what they want, which is the views, which is traffic to buy their product. So you sell, as a content entrepreneur, you sell content packages, which, like what I said, is idea generation, scripting, editing, and publishing for a monthly retainer of $2,000 to $20,000 per client per month. All right. Now the pros and cons of this. All right, let's talk about some pros and cons. So a pro is you can simultaneously grow your own brand, which can be a big social status boost for you. If you have a big following and you know how to produce these viral shorts, that can be really good for your social status. Lots of people are growing their personal brand, so your skill is very relevant to so many people that you would meet at a networking event. It can definitely make you feel like a useful person in general. I like to think about this as future proof, since social media and short form is more the way people consume content in modern times rather than the old-fashioned movies and whatnot. The recurring revenue model can be great for your stability and predictability of income. There's so many clients out there that finding clients can be relatively straightforward. And this is a significant advantage to a lot of people, is that it's very remote friendly. So this is good, like if you want to be that travel nomad, or you live in a remote village out in Timbuktu, then this is probably the most remote friendly entrepreneurial niche. The future stability is similar to commercial. There's going to be more and more demand for quantity as the tools get faster and there's more automation. So all this information is laid out right in front of you. Instead of thinking about this for months and months and slowly piecing the information one little thought at a time, boom, all the information is right here, and you have no excuse not to make your decision. It's laid out in 3 decisions. VFX, where you start as an employee, go up to entrepreneur. You can do commercials with editing and motion design and video production, where you to start your own agency to produce commercials for small businesses and scale up as a bigger agency and entrepreneur, or producing social media content for brands, businesses, and agencies, potentially on the side, also creating your own social media content, which can be a very passionate and engaging life, which can be a really fun and purposeful and passionate career as a creator and influencer. All of these are very lucrative niches. The only way you can go wrong is if you don't make a decision to focus on one of these niches and start developing your portfolio and start implementing the client acquisition warm app marketing system. This isn't rocket science. Don't overthink it. Make a decision. Make a decision. Look at this, rewatch this video, do whatever you gotta do. Don't leave this video until you make a decision of what you're gonna hyper focus on, because I can't have you being confused, generalists jumping around this niche. There's no secret niche. This is what you pursue to make this money. Make a decision and let's get started. You can't go wrong. You can always change your mind. Make a decision, my wizard. I'll see you in the next video.